Gacha games have increasingly become popular on the mobile gaming market as a way for companies to gain profits from a free download. A main mechanic for these games is the ability for players to essentially gamble for in-game items using in-game currency. However, these games have been criticized for their use of predatory methods to keep players engaged, such as creating artificial scarcity or fixed matchmaking to encourage players to purchase upgrades. Today, I will attempt to investigate why players keep playing, even if they know these games use such methods. Kai has played gacha games for about 7 years now and weighs in on the topic.
You know, you do it for the fun, you do it for the characters, you don't do it for the gotcha.
Jeremy, who frequently plays Pokemon Masters and Fire Emblem Heroes, joins in on the discussion as well.
For instance, like you said, the Pokemon game, you have favorite characters you want, and of course that's gonna incline you more to stay with it because you want that character specifically. So I can see that. Well, hey, if I versus a character you don't like and versus a character you do like, I mean, if they start distributing more characters you like, you're more inclined to get it, or you're more inclined to pay for it.
Both Kai and Jeremy emphasize playing their respective games for the characters, which falls in line with many studies that say players tend to enjoy gacha games not for the gacha alone, but for the characters that appear. Another study specific to Fire Emblem Heroes expands this idea by discussing how that game pulls players in through nostalgia, something both Kai and Jeremy touched on when I mentioned it.
Do anything for that, so you can just be this guy out here. You haven't played a Fire Emblem game since like Sacred Stones or whatever, and you're just like, oh shoot, let me just play this one game for Lady Micaiah. And they've only kind of recently rectified that sort of thing, I guess, because the newest mainline Fire Emblem game focuses on a lot of older characters. But genuinely, if you wanted to see any of the older Fire Emblem people, all you had was heroes. That was it.
But what other tactics do these gacha games use, and are they really as predatory or immoral as I imagine? Professors Jeremy Johnson and Robert Bryant from St. Edward's University's Video Game Development Department helped towards an answer. Gacha games are known for creating what is known as artificial scarcity. Professor Bryant gives a great analogy using the Disney company.
So get it on home video before June 1st, right? And that would drive a lot of collectors, a lot of completists, and a lot of families that have been sort of on the fence, or even little kids that are on the fence, like, oh my lord, I'm not gonna be able to see Princess of Prague ever. And Disney used that tactic for years. The Disney Vault, we're going to close it up, put it in the Disney Vault. And it's just them creating scarcity where none really exists. So that the scarcity makes their existing product that isn't a retail stream seem more valuable.
This idea works similar to gacha games under limited banners or specified times where players can gamble for rare items. And more frequently than not, players have no idea when or if these limited times will come back, thus creating artificial scarcity that is constant within these games. Another mechanic that keeps players engaged are reward loops. Game makers continuously reward players from completing tasks, thus pushing players to play more in order to get more rewards. Dr. Johnson helps explain their use in both regular video games and gacha games as well.
And all of the stuff that you use to make a game fun, all of the reward loops, you put those in a game that you sell one time for $50. You put all this stuff in. In a gacha game, they're just using those same reward loops and that same thought to get a little bit of money out of you over and over again.
This is seen in gacha games frequently as special events. Players participate in limited time events for certain rewards and repeat the process throughout the duration of said event. However, the frequency of these events, these reward loops, is what makes gacha games different than regular video games, as they can come up as frequently as every week or every 2 weeks. Both artificial scarcity and reward loops are just part of good business practice in video game production, right? Does it suddenly make these tactics predatory when applied to gacha games? If you asked me this before I started deep diving into this topic, I most likely would have said yes. But that's because I viewed these games only as a player and not as someone who develops gacha games or games in general. Speaking to both Professor Bryant and Johnson has shifted my opinion. Sure, gacha games may use certain tactics to keep players engaged. This could be the characters, the story, reward loops, or scarcity. But at the end of the day, this is something that could be applied to most other genres of games, thus making gacha games not as immoral as I expected.